This is a ManeHustle Media Podcast.
Welcome to Militantly Mixed, the Black as Fuck edition, the podcast about blackness from the mixed black perspective. Because we're mixed, but we're black.
Yeah.
So, hey, what's cracking?
Nothing much. Just, I've been kind of down about stuff lately. Like, I want to be happy and celebrate blackness in some kind of way, but some of the stuff is stacking up lately.
Yeah. And you start getting that way. Like, it's just like, you know, you're everything just starts like snowballing in the sense that you're just like, it gets in your, in your mind. Yeah, that's kind of what it's been feeling like. I noticed that. Well, I guess we could just get into it. So this idea of like every single topic that we have going on, whether it's black people being killed by the police or the Me Too movement, or I mean even down to the Nike stuff right now too. You get this little brief honeymoon period of people supporting whatever the thing is, and then it starts to switch up, and now we're going into criminalizing the victims and victimizing the criminals. Right.
And it feels like there's a lot of that happening today. Like right now, it's happening today. I also actually, I feel a parallel. There's a, and I don't know if it's because of the perpetrator, like the Kavanaugh, situation where, she came and we're talking about Judge Kavanaugh, the one that's going to be on the Supreme Court. The woman came out and said, "This is what happened to me," and a lot of people will then go after her, like, "Well, was she slutty in high school? How does she remember everything? What was she like?" So they go after the victim of the actual sexual assault instead of the perpetrator. Yeah, I mean, and in her case, someone posted her address, her phone number, her email address. She's been getting death threats at her house. She's being stalked at her house. Like, she's already been terrorized and traumatized by an event in her life, and now it's being further traumatized and terrorized because she decided to speak out about what happened to her, versus us saying, "Oh, this guy's a piece of shit. We should make sure that justice is served and that you're treated properly and everything like that."
Right. But I mean, in the parallel that I was seeing was that when it comes to a black victim being shot by a policeman, being something that happens to a black person, it's always the criminalization of the victim. In that sense, where they go after the black person, just like like the Botham Jean, the thing that happened where she walked into this dude's house, shot him, right? He's not doing shit, but then they go and they do a toxicology on, or I don't know if they did a toxicology on him or they search his house for marijuana,
right?
And it was like, "Oh, we had marijuana." What the fuck does that mean? Okay, he's in his own house.
He's in his own house, and I understand like Texas isn't one of the states that have legalized recreational marijuana right now or whatever. Right. But when I first saw that news pop up, the first thing I thought was, who the fuck cares? Like, right. Of all the things, like what we should be focusing on is about the fact that an innocent person was sitting on his couch when someone breaks into his house and is murdered. Right. You should care about the fact that people are tweeting about how he should have been in compliance while she was yelling at him. Well, if you're home alone and you're not doing anything illegal and you're just sitting there and someone breaks into your house holding a gun at you, start screaming, are you going to be compliant? Fucking no. You're going to say, "What are you doing? What's happening?" You're going to be screaming. You're going to be upset. And now we're going to sit there and decide that we should search his apartment for drugs. What's the indication that there was anything like that going on? If the story is true that this woman accidentally walked into his place, mistook it for her own, and shot him, then there's no investigation into his personhood that is necessary for the cops to conduct.
Not at all.
Because because if her story is true, or even if it's not, what she has admitted to is accidentally accidentally walking into someone else's apartment and killing them thinking that they had broken in. So
End of story.
End of story. We don't need to know if he's got marijuana at his house. We don't need to know anything. I mean, besides, wanting to lift him up and celebrate what little life he got a chance to have, we don't need to further investigate, or at least the police officers certainly don't need to further investigate into his life in any way, shape, or form. But they need to find something wrong that justifies this killing and turns this killing from murder into an accident, like a proper accident.
Well, yeah, I mean, because even if you have to try to find justification, right? Even if she was doing all of these even if that, the guy was still a monster in his own house, smoking all that Mary Jane's, you know what I mean? So it's like, they have to monsterize, criminalize, just the way that they do that to the black victim, to the person that it happened to. I mean, and there are people that even said, listen, she was knocking on the door saying, let me in. That was one of the one of the witnesses.
Yeah. So neighbors have been coming through. The neighbors have posted tweets or videos and things like that. There was one I saw on Twitter last week that shows his door, that he has this bright red welcome mat in front of his door, that she doesn't have a bright red welcome mat in front of her door. So first step, you're confused by walking into an apartment that has a red welcome mat when you didn't have one. There was also a video that showed one of the neighbors showed how their doors automatically shut when you open them. And so the claim about the door being ajar, and that she got nervous and pulled her gun and walked in because the door was ajar. Now they show that their apartment door is automatically closed, so you would have had to stuck a doorstop or something to allow for that door to be an actual ajar. So two things against them where it's the actual neighbors on the same floor that have come out and said something. They've said, we heard the knocking, we heard the screaming before the event, and then we heard the gunshot. Like, not enough of that. Like, I happened to see it through a series of retweets on Twitter, but I have not seen anything about that in the news. And I've been pulling up articles, hoping to find that kind of stuff, but specifically to where we're talking about what the neighbors have coming through and said, I'm not seeing any of that anywhere, just on Twitter.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. It's just, I don't get it. And again, I mean, that's what they end up doing. I don't know if it's, and I can't make the correlation to, because the perpetrators are white folks, that it goes to, like the Judge Kavanaugh, the, Blasey Ford, her coming out. But I it's weird how you see people just bending over backwards to make it not that person's fault. Like, just horseplay, or it's, and so, or was she a slut, or was she asking for it, or whatever. And that happens a lot in the Me Too movement, where it's now because you've come forward and said something about somebody, you're actually under the spotlight instead of the person that actually did that.
Right. Unless you're a white man, and like, you don't even necessarily need to be a rich white man, but we're sitting here trying to find every excuse possible for the white man to have done what he did. It's just boys being boys. Right. It's he was disturbed. There was horseplay, blah 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 blah. There's all this kind of stuff. I mean, we're even taking people who have just shot 9 people in a church and taking them to Burger King afterwards, and delivering him to jail safely without a scratch on him. Meanwhile, someone has a comb in his hand and he's killed on sight if he's black, things like that. So as long as you're a white man, you aren't going to be subject to the why did this happen to him type of thing. If the white man is the victim, it's just is what it is. But if it's a woman, doesn't matter if she's a white woman, black woman, any woman of color, whatever, if she is a victim of sexual harassment or sexual assault, we have to figure out what she did to bring that attention onto her, or what she did, even to the point that you hear people blaming victims who are walking around outside at night. Well, what if I needed to go to the grocery store and my husband is asleep, but we really needed something for the morning, so I go and run out to the grocery store real fast at 10:30 at night and I'm raped on my way to the grocery store? Is that my fault? Did I deserve that? Am I calling attention to myself so that happens to me? No, I'm just trying to go to a grocery store,
Right.
but yet they'll sit there and dig and try to find what it is about this woman that invited that action to happen to her. Same thing happened with the laundry list of victims in the Bill Cosby case. All of them, right. It was they were trying to get ahead in their careers. Like, well, why were you putting yourself in the position to be with Bill Cosby alone anyway? Fucking doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It really does.
He drugged them. He raped some of them. He assaulted, 55 women, whatever the number got up to. And that's just the ones who came out. That's just the ones who came out. And we're talking about over decades. And yet he is somehow being, and so now we have a flip, right? It's a male perpetrator, but it's a black perpetrator, but he's America's father. He couldn't have done this awesome, good role as America's father if he was doing all this stuff. So, his case is somehow, I just saw an article a few minutes ago that said that his camp was coming out to say that his trial was the most racist and sexist trial in U.S. history. Yeah. And my first reaction was like, really, rapist? Your trial was sexist? Like, right. I don't have any sympathy for that man. I don't care that he was on the Cosby Show. I don't care that I used to enjoy things that he did. He fucking raped those women. He assaulted those women. Did. He drugged those women. He did. And now he's going to prison for it. Unfortunately, he's only going for 3 to 10 years, which we all know what that means. That means 3 years, or they'll find some sort of loophole that gets him out of there.
He's already, during the trial, he's already been, done enough time already. You know what I mean?
Right. Like, I mean, even the fact that he was convicted in April. It's September, and he's finally being sentenced. I don't understand why we needed that much time.
We don't. I mean, it's a crazy thing that the justice system. I know that this is probably going to go off on a tangent. We were just talking about. That's what we do. But that's how we do. It's weird how our justice system works, in a sense that there's a judge in Sacramento and there's a judge in Texas. They can have the same exact case, same exact people in it, and totally give one probation and totally give the other, the other 7 years in jail.
They can actually be in the same jurisdiction. They don't need to be in different places. Yeah. There can be one judge that'll give a black person 20 years for stealing a loaf of bread and a white person probation or time off served, whatever. Like,
right. I mean, and the reason I had brought it up today, and it's weird because I don't know if you take the subjective part of it out, because judges have to look at things and they play with it themselves and they think about it, and and they sometimes give people leeway, or they don't want this, but it always feels as though it's not in our favor, and I'm talking about our as in POC,
right?
In our favor. There was a dude in Anchorage, Alaska, who kidnapped a woman. Okay, he picked her up, kidnapped her, choked her out till she was unconscious.
Yeah, I saw something about this, but I don't know this whole story.
He ejaculated on her. Okay. And then I don't know if she came to or something like that. But anyway, he admitted to doing that shit. He got no time in jail because during his trial, he was at home on home arrest. What the fuck?
Right. Okay.
Does anybody ever get home arrest? No. House arrest. So he was on house arrest. He got 2 years in jail, but one was, time served, as well as, he got him off, so he's on probation. He didn't get, so you're saying with kidnapping, attempted murder, and sexual assault, those 3 things, that should be 3 fucking felonies.
Right.
Yeah, this dude had house arrest and time served. Now he's back out doing chilling. But it's so weird that judge could see that and make his own arguments and say, and nobody else is sitting there going to be like, yeah, I get it.
Well, see, this
There's
is
no
something
oversight.
This is something that bothers me about our justice system. I understand the concept of double jeopardy and wanting to protect people from being, I guess, harassed and try to... Basically, double jeopardy is in place just to make sure that innocent people aren't constantly hounded for the same case over and over and over again. That I get. But if something is clearly wrong, clearly unequal or whatever, Brock Turner getting 6 months and only actually serving 3 months on his rape case, and then he gets to go on about his life because we don't want to ruin his life over 20 minutes of action. Meanwhile, that woman has to live with what happened to her for her whole life. And if people think that you just get over being raped, you don't. You go on about your life, but you remember it constantly. me. And little things will trigger it that you're not expecting. It could be the way somebody grabs somebody in a movie and suddenly you're thrown back into it. In my case, I was working on a film the other day, and I didn't know there was a sexual assault scene in the movie because I didn't read the script. That wasn't necessarily my job on the thing to have read the script. And so when we go into it, that triggered me, and I had to sit there like in a bubble, participating to do the job that I said that I was going to do, but I was in my head really fucked up for the rest of the night. And it even carried on for me into the next day, where I was just kind of, quiet and inside my own head, because I know that what I'm watching is staged and fake, and I know that the two people knew each other, and she was the one instructing where it was okay to grab her hands, all that kind of stuff, the stuff that they had to do for the scene. But even having all that, it still triggered my memories from the situation that's happened to me, right? So you don't go away. It doesn't go away. 30 years, 27 years, 40 years, 50 years, these women are still affected, even if they can go about their day. And so, sometimes you can't talk about it. I could not talk about what happened to me for years. And then I started to talk about it, and I was, same thing. What were you doing? Blah, 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 blah. Well, I was 12 and I was walking home. That was what I was doing. And I got grabbed off the street. That's what happened. And stuff like that. And then you just don't feel, and then, you get asked, why didn't you bring it up sooner? Because I was terrified, because my dad used to abuse me, and I was afraid that this was going to be something else he was going to abuse me over. And I was already in enough pain and fear and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I didn't want to add one more thing. So I kept my fucking mouth shut. And I did for years. And then I started talking about it. And the first questions that I'm being asked is, well, what did I do? Why did this? Why? How about the first thing that should have come out of someone's mouth was, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened to you. Have you sought counseling? Do I need to help you set something? Reach out, be there. That's what needs to happen to these women. And the thing is that most of us don't have sexual harassment or sexual assault happen to us only one time in our lives. Mm-hmm. And I'm always surprised, honestly, when a woman says, well, nothing like that's ever happened to me. And I'm like, because if you think back, something has happened. Not to say that, say that you've necessarily been raped or touched or assaulted, but walking down the street, someone hollering at you, even as young as 7th grade, I remember guys in school pinching your butt on your way to class, and then you turn around, you can't figure out which boy it is. So this stuff happens your whole life, and to dismiss it and say that it's boys being boys, well, that tells me that somebody's not raising their boys correctly. If you try to dismiss it and say, oh, it's because you were forward, or you flirted, or you this, who cares? It's like Amber Rose says, I could be butt naked in the bed, we could be touching and kissing and all that kind of stuff, and I could say I don't want to do this anymore, and that's okay.
It really is.
You have to be constantly giving consent. And if you are asleep, or if you are drugged, or if you are held against your will and you're not giving consent, continual consent, this is a problem. But now we're more focused on how it's going to affect the men who have perpetrated these crimes.
Yeah, we don't want to ruin their lives.
We don't want to ruin their lives. While these women are going to be ruined, there's no justice. There's no justice that equals what happened to you. If the person who has assaulted or raped or whatever me got jail time, my only relief is that they're in jail and that they're not doing it again.
That they're not doing it at that moment.
Right. I mean, they could be doing it to someone in jail. I don't know. But there's still like, oh, good, justice was served. There's nothing that makes you feel like it's been even. It's it's crossed out now. We're good.
Right.
Because when I'm 99 years old, 99 years old, it's still going to be it's still going to be something that it's going to pop into my head at some point,
Most definitely.
And I'm saying me just because I'm kind of speaking on behalf of being a woman and knowing the experience myself. But these women aren't going to, just because they've managed to find success like Dr. Ford or anything like that, doesn't mean that they're not regularly affected by what happened to them. And now to be further victimized just because it is inconvenient for conservatives to have to now deal with this for the judge that they're trying to put up into the Supreme Court. That's not what we should be focusing on. That's the wrong part are focusing on. Same with the Cosby victims. It's America's father. You really want him to be in prison? Yeah, the fuck I do.
It's that has zero to do with the things that he did.
Right.
It's
exactly.
that's okay. Yes, we know, come on, man, he did that shit. It's not, I mean, if one person says something, you can investigate that and be okay with that. But 55 fucking people said he did the same exact thing. And these were people that didn't know each other.
Right. Clear MO is established.
And listen, it's just like when people used to use the word colored. Okay. Yes. Back in the fucking 60s, white people used to say colored. Black people were okay with it. Then it changed. I can like Cosby back in the fucking day. That's where my like for him is going to stay.
Right.
Right? We can change because of his fucking actions. We've changed that. So now we need to understand that just because he fucking made us laugh in the past does not mean he gets a pass in the future.
Also, how is that even? Like, this is something I never understand too about like celebrities that commit crimes or whatever, where we're just like, oh, but it's Bill Cosby, but come on, but it's this, like, who cares? Who cares that they've entertained you in any way, shape, or form? How does that equal what has happened to the people that they affected? It makes no sense to me that we care about stuff like that. Now, I recall really liking people and then being disappointed by finding out what they were, right? This has happened to me with Michael Jackson, with R. Kelly, with I mean, I guess at this point it's pretty much almost every single every single thing.
You can just keep going.
You get that disappointment. I mean, I remember way back when I was a kid, I really loved Robert Downey Jr. He was one of my favorite actors, and I was really into the Chaplin movie. I don't know what it was about it. I just loved it and his performance. But then he was going through his like crazy drug craze period of time, and he was arrested because he woke up inside that little girl's bedroom. Not that he didn't assault the little girl or anything like that. She wasn't there. The family wasn't there. He just was drugged out, climbed into their house, and fell asleep in her room. And so he goes to prison or whatever, and I'm all sad because this actor that I liked has a drug problem. Right. That's what it was. It wasn't like, oh, but they shouldn't put him in prison because of this. It was, oh, I'm sad and disappointed that this person that I like had this going on. I'm glad that he's managed to get his life together and now he's my Iron Man and everything like that. But if that story was different, if the story was that he actually did break into the house when there was a child there and he assaulted the child, I'm not going to be sitting here celebrating him as Iron Man today, if that were the case.
Yeah, not at
all. Same with Cosby. Yeah, I watched Cosby for years. I don't have to feel any kind of guilt because I watched him back then when I had no knowledge of what he was out there doing. But those stories about Bill Cosby have been going around for years, and I didn't wake up to them until I was an adult. I didn't, know them until I was an adult. And then when Hannibal Buress, put that in his comedy,
isn't that crazy?
And it, that's nuts that you're just telling a joke. It's a joke with a message, but that you're just telling a joke, and it ends up changing, empowering women to come forward, more women to come forward, and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's crazy how he is the reason why this has happened, and maybe maybe there's a little bit of credit to him for other situations, because if you can grab Cosby, then there's these other people we can start looking after, the ones that we really already knew were monsters, like Harvey Weinstein and stuff like that.
Weinstein and all them, and Matt Lauer and all those fucking guys.
Right. But then look at what's happening now. And this is definitely something that makes sense for us to talk about on this show in particular, is the idea about how Cosby's not getting off at this point. He's not getting a pass. He's now going to prison or whatever. But Matt Lauer is about to have this TV show where he's coming back, where he's going to talk about the Me Too movement from the guilty party side. Have you heard about this?
Right.
This is fucking nuts. Number one, Matt Lauer, we never need to see your ass on TV again. You didn't earn to come back. We don't give a shit about you. We don't need to see you again. I guess whatever he's done hasn't been considered illegal, and therefore he is not going to trial, and therefore he is not going to prison or whatever. But what he needs to do is not be on our TV ever again. And even worse, and audacious, to sit there and try to tell the Me Too movement story from the side of the perpetrators. Who gives a fuck?
That's not a side. That is a side.
Yeah, we don't need that side.
We don't need that side.
Right.
It's you did that shit. So if there is, and there's memes that are going around. And I think that's kind of like why I was talking to you about that is that I feel as though, and it sucks because it's like, even in a situation where they're all assholes, it's as if the black asshole is getting singled out and convicted, and Bill O'Reilly can pay off motherfuckers. Harvey Weinstein, Trump, the fucking president, this Kavanaugh dude is going to try to get, you know what I'm saying? Matt Lauer, Charlie Sheen. I mean, it's of all the assholes, why is it the black asshole is being convicted and having to do something? And see, you know, so it go to his defense because he's black, because I don't want him to be, it hurts my brain.
No, I get it. I mean, I want to still say, what we want to still say is, yes, Bill Cosby needs to go to prison, and this is fine. But who also needs to go to prison is Harvey Weinstein, for sure.
For sure.
You know,
Kevin Spacey,
for sure. I mean, this is another thing that baffles me. How is Kevin Spacey not in holding, at least right now, pending a trial? He assaulted a 14-year-old boy.
Right.
Like, and then how did he get out of it? By coming out as gay. Dude, we didn't need you to come out as gay in that moment. We already knew you were gay. You've been going to the Oscars with your mom since 1992. We knew you were gay. Do not come out as gay and say that that's the reason why you assaulted a 14-year-old boy. The reason you assaulted a 14-year-old boy is because you're a piece of raping shit and you need to go to prison. It has nothing to do with you being gay.
That pissed me off to no end, because of the simple fact is he played into the hands of the people who feel as though being gay is akin to being a pedophile,
and it's fucking not. Because they're straight pedophiles too. Like,
it's not that hard.
It's not that hard of a concept to grasp. But this is the thing. Like, yes, so there's clearly, this is another part of the inequity that we experience here in the United States. That not only do you criminalize innocent victims like Botham Jean, who is murdered in his own house while he's minding his own business by a white cop, but we're also kind of further victimizing. God, I don't even want to say the words. It makes me really uncomfortable to even say the words. But we're allowing for the black perpetrator of a crime to be the one that is the example, the one that's, you know, the example is being set through Cosby. But we're not pushing for the ones that are white, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, plus I have this whole rant about the statute of limitations and the fact that, you know, more women weren't allowed to be included in the rape case with Bill Cosby, because clearly when you have 53 or 55 or 57 women from dating back into from the 50s, they should have all been in that list. It shouldn't have just been the more recent ones because of the statute of limitations. I don't know why we have it on rape, but whatever. So the 3 to 10 years does fucking nothing to me. I wanted to see a conviction that showed, you know, 3 to 10 years per person, you know, that he's accused of raping, and so we know this nigga's never coming out of prison. But at the same time, I also want to see that same kind of conviction for Harvey Weinstein and for Kevin Spacey. With Kevin Spacey, you know, we only have, like, one, I think it's a huge failing that we're saying that because Anthony Rapp was a boy, that it wasn't really an assault. You know, like, he should just be able to handle it. Plus, it's a gay thing. It's not really a pedophilia thing. You know, all this other kind of stuff. But we still have a story that is out there that he kind of softly admits to, Kevin Spacey, that he assaulted a 14-year-old boy. You know, but because he's gay now, somehow he's not in prison. Doesn't make sense. He should have been arrested immediately. It shouldn't have mattered how long ago it took place. And same thing. There's been stories about Kevin Spacey for decades. He's extremely aggressive with straight boys that he is attracted to on sets. I've heard some stories directly from people here in the film industry who have had interactions with them. There's been stories about Kevin Spacey being super aggressive with men on thing, and it's usually, I mean, it usually is towards the young side of it. I know of one actor that I know personally who was in a movie with them, and they were all young, all the other people in the movie, and he doesn't really take no for an answer. There's stories about when he's visited colleges and, you know, to do like those masterclass things where he aggressively. So there's been stories about him forever. So I think with Kevin Spacey, you're not only dealing with the criminal assaulter type thing, you're also dealing with pedophilia in his case, and it has nothing to do with his homosexuality. It just happens to be that he is a homosexual pedophile instead of a heterosexual pedophile. So yeah, like, these people need to be in fucking prison. So I don't know what kind of argument you have about the inequity of how you treat criminals for doing the same crime. You know, like, it's clearly something weird that we are totally fine with these white men of power who have done all this stuff. And I mean, just think, like, yes, with 45, you're gonna tell me that if there was even a hint of a story like that, even a hint of a story like that for Barack Obama, that he would have gotten, you know, I mean, there's no, I mean, we know there's no fucking way Barack Obama could have said grab him by the pussy a month before voting for presidency and him be even near the fucking thing. No way that would have happened. And
never would have.
We thought that grab him by the pussy was the nail in the coffin back then. Like, that was something, you know, my husband and I were talking about the other day. Like, I was sitting there the whole time feeling like, I don't know what he can do. Like, I don't know what he can do, but I hope this is what, you know, is the thing. And it wasn't. Like, we are fine with rich white men doing this kind of stuff. We think it's fine. Somehow we think it's fine. And, you know, Louis C.K., same thing. Not necessarily, it's not being viewed as criminal, although it is holding something against their will, locking a door, separating them from their ability to escape. This is kidnapping. He should have been arrested for what he did. But what has he done? He's walked out on stage recently and performed to a standing ovation at the Comedy Cellar in New York. Like, this is a problem. Like, this is a problem. These white men should be strung up in the exact same manner that the claim is that we're stringing up Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby did that shit. He deserves what's happening to him. But these white men, all of them need those same things to be happening to them as well.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, I mean, we are obviously asking for equality when it comes to everything, but you would think that when there is criminality in these things, that it would be even as well. At like, bad people are bad
bare
people.
Minimum.
But I mean, over time, you've seen that. Over, you know, it's a long, it's not a short list, is what I'm saying. It's like, of all the times where you can seriously say these people have done the same crime, this white person, this black person. I mean, we go back to the driver. You know, the driver of the car, the dude, the white boy that lived in Palos Verdes, wanted to be gangster.
Down here
drove
recently.
the car, drove the car. Dudes killed people. The two black people are in jail. The white dude is not, because he just wanted to be that, and he's not. You know, listen, that fucking, you know, what precedent are you setting to say people, you know, I've always was told it's the company you keep, right? So if it isn't really that, it's kind of hard to, you know, to push that. If you're driving the fucking getaway car and you was trying to do some gangster shit, not that, you know, not like, you know, there's always been those people that are in jail that are just been in the car and the dude did some dumb shit while you're in the car you're driving and they've gone down.
Right.
This dude was literally driving for the fucking drive-by.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is what it is. So, I mean, it happens, and you would think we would all be on the same page. They're all criminals. Yeah. You would hope we're on the same page, but I just don't get it. It doesn't happen. It doesn't.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And it sucks, because now here we are sitting there trying to argue somehow that I'm not arguing that Bill Cosby is getting an unfair shake because he's black, but at the same time, I kind of am. I'm saying he's being, they're following the proper procedure with him. They're going to trial. They're presenting evidence. They're convicting him. Now they're sending him to prison. All of this is correct. But why is his story happening and Harvey Weinstein's not happening and Kevin Spacey's story's not happening and all of the other fucking people out there, their stories aren't happening? Why is it that these rich white men like Bill O'Reilly and Matt Lauer can pay millions of dollars and in terms of settlements for things that are criminal? You know, criminal. We're not talking about like, you disclose something after signing an NDA. That's not criminal, right. but you would have to pay a fine for it or something like that. We're talking about kidnapping, holding against people's will. We're talking about, performing sex acts without consent, whether in or on or around a person who is not consenting. We are talking about criminal activity, and yet we have all of these rich white men who have paid their way out of it and and they're still walking around, and more than that, they're continuing to have careers in some way, shape, or form. And these aren't men who need them. These aren't men who are gonna go into the poorhouse. Like Louis C.K., is one of those ones that sucks because I fucking loved him forever. I have loved him, and now knowing what I know about him, I can no longer support him or his career. I don't want to see him have a comeback. I don't think someone who does this deserves a comeback. I think because there was unlawful, what is it called when it's under the kidnapping charge, but it's called like unlawful detainment, right? Unlawful detainment of these women. They were in a room where they did not have the ability to leave the room voluntarily. Matt Lauer had fucking doors that automatically lock with a remote control. How the fuck is that white dude not in prison? How was he not arrested? That is clearly kidnapping, at the very minimum, unlawful detainment. So we should be talking about doing to these white men what has, and I'm saying it's with quotation fingers, been done to Bill Cosby. So yeah, like I don't like that I'm sitting here having to say something like it's unfair.
Right. It's unfair what they're doing to Bill Cosby, but it's like it's
fuck. It's like it's not unfair what's happening to him, but what is unfair is that the same things that he has done, these white men have done, and they are not in prison, and they're not even afraid of being arrested at this point.
Not at all. Not at all.
They even know that their stories are all the way out there in the world, and they're just like, so fucking what?
And my thing with the Judge Kavanaugh thing is I really feel as though they already knew this shit. Because for the simple fact that if you've seen his whole the whole hearing, they put so many women to come forward to say, and there was no need for that. There's no need for that. Is it because they want him to get rid of Roe v. Wade that they're putting a whole bunch of women that he's been so dignified and nice to? But also because he used to be a dick.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because if they looked at his yearbook and where they used to say, there was this one thing, it said Renata, I don't know how to pronounce her name, and I apologize, Renata alumni. And there was this girl, her name was Renata, and she was one of the ones that signed the form that said that he was so great to women back in the day. And they all said that they ran, that they did things to her. So there was these jokes, you know what I'm saying? And they called themselves the Renata alumni because they all, tried to go out with her.
Oh my gosh.
She didn't know that until they went through his yearbook, and all these dudes kept putting it on there that she was getting passed around through these dudes, and they were trying to, make that the thing. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And I mean, okay, we can go. I guess we can go days into that. But my thing is being a mixed guy, I've always known what I could and couldn't do. In a sense, my dad always told me that.
Right.
And I think growing up with close to the military housing and always having military policemen always rolling through, I just kind of knew what not to do and things like that. But the reason I bring that up is that now there is a thing that's called him too. Have you heard about this shit? It's a thing that exactly. That should be the way.
I have not heard about it yet, but okay. I'm already anticipating.
Yeah, there's a person that we went to school with. I don't know if you knew. I mean, she was a little older than us. But she's been posting a lot of things about how, as long as a woman can accuse a man of sexual assault, no man is safe. My sons aren't safe.
Wow.
My husband isn't safe. And then it's hashtag him too. I'm gonna tell you right now, I have 5 fucking brothers. I have 5. Yes. That's the first thing. But I have 5 fucking brothers, and not one boy. They never would be accused of that because we were raised correctly, right? If you raise your sons correctly, no amount of any accusation will be proven correct, right? I understand that there's the chance of somebody. I mean, it's just, my thing is that I don't ever my dad always said, don't put yourself in a situation like that, right? Don't put yourself in a situation where you're the only person that can say a yes or no to something. You know what I mean? Like if you're in a situation and something goes bad, I always have thought that that was on me. You know what I'm saying? To get myself out of it, to, or not get myself out, but like to put myself in a better situation. So have I been in bad situations before? Yes, I have. But I've never ever thought that, hopefully I never get a sexual assault, somebody has a false accusation towards me and I'm not safe. That's just fucking bogus, dude.
Right. I mean, this idea that you have to be worried about false accusations is detracting distracting from what is actually happening. There are real men out there committing these real crimes against women. Women are being criminalized, victims, female victims, right. and male victims, because we know there are out there too, are being criminalized for the reasons why this stuff is happening to them. The actual criminals, the actual perpetrators are being victimized for, the unfair treatment or the unfair attention that's happening to them. And we're sitting here saying stupid shit like, now my sons aren't even safe. You know what?
Yeah.
Because you should be teaching your sons that if they see this behavior is happening, it is just much their responsibility to jump in and, to stop it too. Like, why aren't we raising our boys to say, hey, I saw you, you're talking to Jane and Jane said no, but you keep talking to Jane, fucking leave Jane alone.
Leave her alone.
And now, not to say that it is any man's responsibility necessarily to protect some random woman or anything like that. That's just really a nicety, if anything. Or if you have the ability or the strength or whatever to protect someone or the desire, that's fine. I'm not
like
claiming
you said, put your body in the way.
Put your body in the way. Like, I'm not claiming necessarily that it is everybody's responsibility. But I do feel at the same time that we're in a position in all things that we talk about on this show, and kind of it's just our climate right now. We are in this time where we do kind of have to put our bodies in the way of something. When I'm at the fucking burrito joint down the street from my house and I hear a white woman being, rude to the people behind the counter and claiming that she doesn't understand their English even though they're speaking English, and I throw my voice out there, it's because nothing's getting done and it might not be my place, but I need to shut this white woman who's being racist down in her tracks, and hopefully other white people are going to see me do it and think, oh yeah, this was a racist moment, we shouldn't have let this pass. If you're a guy who's seeing a woman being harassed or something like that, and you stand up in her defense, you're not standing up in her defense hoping that you can get the dessert that guy wasn't gonna get in that moment. Like, don't stand up to protect a woman in the hopes that she's gonna fuck you instead or whatever. But putting yourself in that way, like, if we were raising our boys correctly, like you're saying, then more than likely they're not going to be in a position to be accused of something like that. True, some woman could do some dirt and make false claims, but this doesn't happen as much as the real thing happens.
Exactly.
Yes,
and a lot of people don't get that. Most of the time women aren't doing most of the time women aren't, just because of what the woman had to down there, she was gonna leave the fucking country, right? Just because of the way that we treat the victim, most of the time these women do not say anything, or they don't just make some shit up. Like, guess what? Well, fuck it. I'm just going to say he did this to me. No, they don't. You know what I mean? And to think that that's just like how women work. And it's usually women who say that shit about other women. Like, oh my God, these women are out here being fake and making shit up. She probably made it up. What kind of fucking woman are you?
You know what? You can give me 1,000 women who's going to come forward and defend any of these assaulters. You can bring me 1,000,000 women to say he never assaulted me. He always treated me with respect. He was always kind to me. But all you have to show me is one woman he actually did assault, and guess what? He's a fucking assaulter.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't matter. I mean,
exactly.
Just think about your own self. In general, I like, people, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, maybe there's a handful of people that I really absolutely hate, and I'm not going to treat them kindly. I'm not necessarily going to go out of my way to be cruel to them, but I'm not going to go out of my way to be kind to them.
Right.
But I'm kind to all these 100 people over here. And if I did go out of my way to be cruel to one of these people, and they said, oh, Sharmane was cruel to me today, it wouldn't matter that I'm nice to these 100 people over here. It wouldn't matter, because I was cruel to that person. That's for something that's small. That's something that all of us have done. All of us have been kind of shitty to somebody at some point. And it doesn't matter that we're not shitty to the majority of the people that we see. We were still shitty to that person. It's no different. It carries into all the other things. I'm not a bank robber because I only robbed this one bank, but I walk past 1,000,000 banks every day. That doesn't mean that I'm not a fucking bank. You can extend it to all these other goofy ass places. I don't care if 1,000,000 women come forward and sign a document that said Kavanaugh never assaulted them or whatever. I do not fucking care. It doesn't matter, because there are 3 women now that are credible, that have support, that have, well, I don't know in the case of Dr. Ford's if that counts as evidence or hearsay. That's the other part of fucking sexual assault, is that a lot of times you can't prove it.
You can't prove it. And that's, Charles Blow, he came out, he was a sexual assaultant, and he came out and he was like, could I prove it? No, and that's usually why these guys do that. And it's not about, and my other thing that want me to smack every fucking person at the Judiciary Committee is that they said he came out and said, well, I was a virgin during that time period. What the fuck does that have to do with me? That has zero to do with you being a fucking sexual assaulter. That maybe make you worse. You know what I'm saying? Because you probably were in that, when dudes are trying, and that's the, I can go on, because that's what I think the culture is in all these movies, that every movie that's a teen movie is the movie about how this guy is going to fucking have sex with this girl for the first time. And it's always this challenge on, and how they, hey bro, you got to be a fucking man before you're fucking 18. And it's just, that perpetuates the fact that, women are just used to get that out of the way for guys. You know what I'm saying?
But we also train our girls to think that too. Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, all these things. These are women and girls that are asleep at the time that they're kissed and woken up.
Fuck, never thought of that though. I did now, but I mean, it's like,
like if this is what you've been, if this is what as a girl you're raised on, and you're like, hey, she was asleep. How could she have true love's kiss if she wasn't a part of it? She was just a sleeping body, and someone leans over and kisses her, and now she's awoken and the spell is broken, and now it's happily ever after. No, that counts as fucking non-consensual assault.
It's so crazy that's what that movie is.
That's what it is.
She was asleep, and he came in near. I mean, there's 2 of them. But there's Sleeping Beauty, and then there's
Snow White. Snow White was asleep too, but it's okay with Snow White. She was a slut who lived with 7 dudes. Like, I mean, seriously, they're gonna say stupid shit like this because, I mean, I'm putting it in terms of the cartoon, but in real life, in high school, especially at the school that we went to, I didn't hook up with anybody. By the time I left Long Beach, I was trying to like separate myself from kind of the madness of the years prior, and I just, plus like a lot of people at the school know my mom, so I didn't want anything good about her. I didn't even know who her spies was. She would sit there one day and tell me like, I heard you were hanging out with so and so all day or whatever. It's like, yeah, we were just hanging out, whatever.
Like, how did you know that?
Yeah, so I didn't get into anything in from 10th grade to senior year. I didn't mess with, well, like made out with a couple people or whatever, but it never got farther than that. But I had this reputation somehow of being this like someone had told me in high school that I was that they thought I was a sadomasochist bisexual.
Yeah.
And like this was some kind of a reputation that I had in high school. At the time I wasn't out as bisexual. I hadn't told anybody that I was attracted to women, and I was still actually kind of dealing with the fact that I was attracted to women too. I didn't fully grasp it in high school. So there was that issue. It was like, all right, fine, people think I'm this, but and at the time I was even in personal denial about it. But then the sadomasochist thing, I don't know where that came from. I guess I just seemed mean because I wore sunglasses and I wasn't bubbly or whatever to everybody. But like, here I have this reputation in high school that I don't know how it's earned because I didn't mess around with anybody in high school. So there's no reason why it popped up. But for whatever reason, it was the reputation that got back to me. And in some cases, it was used to me when a dude from like some of our friends, some of the guys that both you and I know, when they would try to hit on me in school and I would, not go for it, they would say, well, what about this? I heard you're a slut. I heard you do this. I heard you do that. Why aren't you going to do it with me? These are people that you and I still have interactions with.
Right.
And you sit there and you think like, I had no shot. Like in that case, if something had happened to me at that school, given this reputation that I had that was unearned, that I don't even know how it surfaced. Is it because I wore black all the time? I don't fucking, like, to this day, I don't have.
Yeah, you kind of like try to go through and do some type of forensics on why people thought certain ways. It's yeah, I mean, and that's what happens in everywhere, right? Somebody can just be like, oh yeah, I heard she's a slut. From who? You just made that shit up. So therefore you can keep, you tell 2, 3, 4 people, they make, you know what I mean? It is what it is. And
all of us are guilty of falling for it and perpetuating it. Right. But imagine now that girl who has this, like, and mine's minor, but like we know some people in high school that had some pretty bad reputations just in hearsay alone that I to this day have no idea if it's true, but I even catch myself when we hear about them, popping up and thinking that's the first thing that comes to mind. Oh, but didn't she blah 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 blah, but didn't she blah 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 blah, and I'm a woman and I'm a feminist. Like, these aren't thoughts that I should have, and yet our culture trains us to do this, and think about how easy it is to be dismissive of a person just because they have this reputation of being slutty or being flirtatious or whatever, dating all these people. And if it's one of those girls, then later on when she has to come forward, let's say it's someone from our own school, our own environment, and they were up for election or something like that, and one of these girls from high school comes forward and says, oh, but this happened to me, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, yeah, but you were a slut in high school.
Right. Yeah, everybody knew that. Everybody knew it.
Yeah.
But what the fuck is that? How does that put any type of weight on anything, right?
I don't care. I don't care if someone was a slut in high school. If they got raped, they were still raped. It doesn't matter if they were a slut in high school. Yeah. I don't care.
It does not. It does not matter. It's, my goodness.
Even people that you don't like and you're like, oh, that person is a cunt. I don't care. It doesn't mean that they deserve to be raped. Like, it's just like, it doesn't matter. That. So we shouldn't be talking about anything. It's the same thing with Botham Jean. We shouldn't be talking about whether or not he had marijuana in his apartment. I mean, like, I'm sure many of us feel it was planted. I'm sure other people feel like it wasn't planted. Even if it was legitimately who fucking cares? Yeah. We shouldn't be talking about whether or not he had marijuana in his apartment, because what happened to him was he was sitting on his couch, minding his own business in his own apartment, not doing anything illegal, when a cop broke into his apartment and killed him. That's what we should be talking about. With Dr. Ford and any of the future women that are going to come forward on Kavanaugh, they were at a school party and they're drinking. Oh, clutch my pearls. I've never heard of high schoolers fucking drinking at a party before. Who the fuck cares? We shouldn't be talking about whether or not she was at a high school party drinking. We should be talking about the fact that she was locked into a room with 2 boys who were trying to assault her. That's what we should be talking about.
And my thing is how do you simultaneously say it's okay because he was drunk, but it's not okay because she was drunk, or she deserved it because she was drunk?
Right? Why don't we ever talk about that? That never comes up.
You can't. Oh, she was drinking that night. What she was wearing. Oh, but you gotta, he was drunk. He was, how is that even? That hypocrisy is just right in the fucking face.
Butt ass naked, and we should still be able to say no, because we should have agency over our own bodies and our own decisions. And I mean, what if you're in the middle of sex and someone does something you don't like and you can't get your head back into sexy time and you're like, I'm done here? That's fine. All of it's fine. Saying at any point that you say no is fine.
Yeah.
Stop.
I mean, it's like, if I'm in a sexual encounter with somebody and she puts a finger in the, I'm like, hey, whoa, 1 second. You got to, first you got to warn me. No, I mean,
at the very minimum, warn you. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Just at least warn a motherfucker it's about to happen.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's in 2018. We could, but I'm saying,
it's on the menu.
But what I'm saying is that you have to be okay with someone saying, okay, you know what? We've gone away from what we were here for, or at any time you have to be like, ooh, okay, boom. Respectful. All right. And that right there, it's funny, is like, you would get more respect from that person if you did just do that. You know what?
Oh yeah.
We don't have to do anything.
It would potentially not ruin future opportunities of sex with this person because they respected your decision in that moment and they were like, cool. Right. Honestly.
Not like, bitch, you already said yes.
You already said yes, right? You can't renege now or whatever. Like, that's not, in the heat of the moment, that's not cool. And I understand, like, when you're all juiced up on your hormones and stuff like that, sometimes you don't think clearly. I don't think that that's an excuse. I understand that it's a thing. But still, like, if you're still like, I'm too excited and I need to finish this, fucking go in the bathroom.
Yeah, do it yourself. Bye.
Do it yourself. Get it out of your system. Let's come back and talk about it. Like, that's what
we can do it later.
But so yeah, I know that we started this thing off kind of talking about the victimization of criminals and the criminalization of victims, and I do think we covered a portion of that. We do kind of go a little bit off a tangent, but it all does loop back around to the same idea, is that at least it's clear in the way we treat our criminals and our victims of color. They basically, a criminal and a victim of color is kind of seen as the same, whereas a perpetrator, a white perpetrator is kind of treated like a white victim,
right?
And there's something obviously problematic about this. I don't know what it is that makes people so comfortable with this. There's tons of stuff that has to do with racism. When you hear it, you're instantly appalled and your stomach hurts, and then you see a white person who it does not affect just say it and do it, and you're just like, oh, I don't know what to do. Like, anytime you watch those clips that rotate about, like, 45 at his rallies, where he, protesters are speaking out during that, and he's like, get those son of a bitches out of there, and he says there's that one where he says, in the old days, in the good old days, we would have just whatever.
Would have just hit him or
knock the shit out of him, whatever, stuff like that. And you're sitting there and you're hearing all these people chant and cheer, and you're just like appalled to think that that it's not even that this should equally turn everybody's stomach. You want to believe that this kind of stuff should equally turn everybody's stomach, but it just doesn't. And it seems to be that it's because it's happening. There's a white person there. And so that's why it doesn't turn their stomach. Like they're beating up these black people being dragged out of rallies or whatever, and they're punching them in the face. This like 16-year-old girl with her backpack in front of her chest, trying not to bump into people, but she's still present at the protest, and she's getting thrown around by grown ass men. And because they think of her as less than human just because of the color of her skin. There is something racist about the fact that Cosby's trial had gone through, as I'm saying also in quotation fingers, as fast as it did, in comparison to Harvey Weinstein, and stuff like that. Like, there is something there. It's hard to really put your finger on saying it, because it's not like there's a whole lot of actual written down evidence. It's just the evidence of you can just see it in the world going on. But we should be looking at this stuff. We should be evaluating it and talking about it and calling bullshit where it needs to be called. I don't know what it'll take to get Kevin Spacey in prison, or Matt Lauer or Harvey Weinstein or whatever. I saw an article earlier today that said like this Cosby conviction is going to and sentencing is finally going to be the thing that opens the floodgates in terms of these convictions. I don't believe that to be the case.
I don't either.
I think
really don't.
You need to get somebody like a Harvey Weinstein or a Kevin Spacey to be convicted of this kind of stuff before you start concerning yourself with how many rich white men we're about to lose. Like, yeah.
Right. And I think that, it's because of the blackness of the person. I feel as though it's not going to have that effect that if it were Weinstein putting his ass in jail, regardless if it was going to be club fed or whatever.
Yeah, it's going to be light, whatever.
If he actually was convicted, then I would think that there has to be some type of, then snowball effect going, from there. You would think. You
would hope so. Yeah. I think this is something we'll probably have to revisit a bunch of times, because there's going to be more of this kind of stuff. But it just, like, I don't know, lately, it comes and goes, right? There's just times when you're just worn down by the racism, and then there's times when you're just kind of getting by and getting through. Find little pockets of times that you can not think about it. I was kind of hoping that we could have like a happy cheer episode coming up soon, but like the last couple of days I just couldn't get my mind there. It really is weighing me down right now, and so we talked about having this sort of honoring Black women episode to come up, and I've already started reaching out to a couple of people, so I'll put it out there for any of our listeners. If there is a Black woman in your life that has, lifted you up, made you who you are, contributed to your life in some way, shape, or form that you want to tell the world about, honor them in some way, shape, or form, hit us up on our social media at Twitter, MMBlackAF, or Instagram or Facebook, Militantly Mixed Black AF. Hit us up on an email, blackaf@militantlymixed.com, or you can even call us and leave us a voicemail about this woman at 323-545-6001 and tell us your stories, because what I would really love is just to hear a whole bunch of positive stories about Black women that are out there in the world doing things and they don't get enough credit for the stuff that they're out there doing. I'm definitely going to have a couple to share, and hopefully other people will participate too.
Let us know.
We haven't figured out when we're going to do it because it depends on how many of these we're getting, but I already got a few people that are willing to hook up with us for it. So
nice.
Yeah, I think it'll be good, and it'll be nice to at least have that to look forward to as something
that's uplifting,
positive in Blackness. Yeah, because I get nervous about this on both of the shows, because we're dealing with race and identity. There are times when we are going to have to get into the dirty sides of what it's like to be a person of color. But there are things that are so beautiful about being a person of color, and in particular for me, and I probably don't want to speak for you, but probably for you too, being mixed, you get to see, multiple sides of what can be beautiful about identity and things like that. And, we wouldn't have gotten together to do any of these podcasts if we didn't love being mixed people and wanting to celebrate that. So hopefully we can get a few more positive ones in there. I mean, I had fun last week at the concert. That was nice. Was a positive Black day. But unfortunately, it wasn't a high that I could live off of for too long, because I see this stuff about Botham Jean and now this Cosby stuff, and even the honeymoon period is off on the Nike campaign now too, because now that they've what did they boost up, like $7 billion or something in the last 2 weeks, and so now everybody's like, oh yeah, great, Nike made $7 billion, but there's still people in China that are suffering and working in their sweatshops.
Now we need to we need to move in that direction.
So now there's actual calls. I've been seeing actual calls for Kaepernick to use his weight, against
with them,
within the system. I don't know what we're going to see in that, or if it's even crossed his attention the way it's crossed the rest of us. But even when we have positives, we don't get them for very long. So we have to try to sit there and fight.
Let's ride the wave
to keep.
We can. I would always, I would love to have those episodes where we are just talking about all the things that make us love being mixed, because that is one of the things that I would never say that I love being mixed. I would never say that I do not. You know what I'm saying?
Same.
If there was any, you know what I mean? Because there's always, yes, I do deal with the bullshit, but I love this. You know what I mean? There are things that are just, that my daughters, they love knowing that they are a part of that, and they've told me they're even especially the white one. She always talking about she Black. So I mean, if she could see the white one,
Rice,
Rice, so when Rice says it, and
I forgot that you called your daughters rice and beans until I was listening back to our other episode the other day for last week's thing. When I heard you say rice and beans again, I started laughing. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that you called them.
So when Rice is out there, she's even loving, even though her quarter is in there, she's gonna play it out. So
that's good. But maybe we should kind of get into the deep dive of individually why we really love being mixed and what we love about being mixed next week.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right, girl.
Well, let's say goodbye.
All right.
Militantly Mixed, the Black as Fuck edition is a ManeHustle Media Podcast, produced and edited by Sharmane Johnson, co-hosted by MixedGirlMane and Blerdvision. Music is provided by Hwoodplayers and Pond 5. If you like what you heard on Militantly Mixed, the Black as Fuck edition, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow us on social media on Twitter at MMBlackAF and Instagram at MilitantlyMixedBlackAF. And if you want to sponsor the podcast, please go to www.patreon.com/militantlymixed. Peace, y'all. This is a ManeHustle Media Podcast.